Good afternoon, everybody, and thanks for joining. My name is Vinay Prabhakar. I'm a partner with Deloitte, and I run the alliances and ecosystem for Deloitte. And on behalf of Google and Deloitte, I welcome you all to this webinar. I guess the topic of today's webinar is extremely relevant, and it's a new normal, right? I mean, that's basically what we have been facing for the past 3 months, the modernizing the workspaces, as we call it. It is nothing new anymore, right? I mean, it was started off 3 months ago. Now it has become a new normal. The pandemic has forced us to relook at how we think of business and how we run our businesses. Now, the best way to kind of learn, I would say, is to go from examples. And so what we thought was, as a part of this webinar, we would get a couple of our stalwarts from the industry to learn and understand what the new normal means to them. A new normal, when we talk about virtualization, it is not about working remotely. It also is about how do you conduct your business. What's the new normal in terms of digitization? How close can you get to your customers? So on and so forth. So there are many questions that need to get answered. So we have put together a panel of industry experts who do this for a living, who consult and help clients do that as well. So we got Rajiv Singh, who's a lead partner with us, a senior partner with Deloitte, and he runs our automotive business. He's done this, he's consulted and helped many of our auto industry clients go through this journey, and so we'll learn from him a little bit. We got Nash, who's the head of digital e-commerce, HP, who's been living this journey for the past 3 to 4 months. Been pretty, very exciting stories that he has to share of what HP has done in terms of virtualization. We got very fortunate to get Samit Datta, a very experienced technology leader, a global supply chain leader as well with Pyramidal Glass. And we also have a lead partner, Neeraj Arora, who leads our Google practice, and also Rajesh, who is customer engineering from Google Cloud. So we're going to hear from them about what virtualization means to them and learn from examples. And we thought we will, spend the next 45 minutes to 50 minutes learning and understanding about them. And towards the end, we have Q&A and the next steps, and basically we kind of do a closure. So in terms of a quick agenda, what we would like to do is play a video. So Google and Deloitte have, from a relationship perspective, have a global relationship, and we want to kind of talk about what it means to India business. So we'll have CEOs from Deloitte India Consulting and Google to come in, and a small video that we'll play, and then after that we'll move into the panel discussion. So can we roll in the video? And thank you again, everybody, for joining.
Hello, everyone. My name is Amitabh. I run Cloud Partners and Alliances for Google Cloud in India. I'm super excited to be here today in conversation with Romal Shetty, President Consulting, Deloitte India, and Karan Bajwa, Managing Director, Google Cloud India. Romal, if I can just begin with you, how do you see this alliance between Deloitte and Google Cloud enabling Indian businesses particularly?
Thanks, Amitabh, Karan, and Google for inviting me on this. The way I look at this partnership really is Deloitte is really helping shape and envision the new normal with our clients, right? I mean, you take it whether it's a touchless finance, whether it's digital supply chain or branchless banks. And Google is really bringing the might of the cloud, analytics and others to enable this vision quickly.
And Karan, what about yourself? I mean, as organizations get ready for the next normal, as they say, how do you believe this alliance can help organizations, reimagine, build, grow, and eventually thrive?
The scale adoption of technology is a foregone conclusion post-COVID. The second piece is it's also very clear that we'd come around to realizing or accepting that technology is the enabler of business. The transition that will now happen is technology will get to the fore of the business. And that's going to take a very consultative approach. It's not just about giving technology, but understanding deeply the business and how it'll get transformed with the use of technology. So a very consultative approach is required. The third nuance, in my view, is that given the scale of disruption, people have been trying innovations in technology in pieces in their businesses. I think that innovation will now get adopted on scale. And finally, this is going to be a time of forging new partnerships. I believe that each of these nuances is what Deloitte and Google Cloud can bring alive for customers.
Romal, I'll come back to you on this one. As you look at, customers getting out of this crisis eventually and obviously continue to solve their toughest problems, what opportunities do you think lie ahead for these customers, particularly from a perspective of what this alliance can bring to the table?
Businesses now are sort of reshaping how, when, where, and by whom work gets done. And the opportunity for Indian businesses really to relook at their business models and say, can we rediscover our customer? Are we operating in the right space? Should we? Or how should we reopen stores? Can we deliver the rapid online commerce? How can we elevate human experience? I mean, how can we achieve sales and service excellence? How can I orchestrate a digital supply chain? Or how can I do all of this stuff by actually being virtual and having a right operating model? So in that sense, both Google and Deloitte are really bringing the best in terms of whether it is in terms of the business models, the business processes, whether it is in terms of the technology infrastructure, cloud, to really reshape and help companies, for example, have that competitive advantage.
Thanks for that perspective. And Karan, coming back to you on the same question, in the sense that from your lens, what opportunities do you see coming out of this in terms of what customers can expect from this partnership?
Very strong consulting and professional services capability of Deloitte, along with the technology capabilities that Google brings, is going to be a key anchor in helping customers meet the scale of the digital aspiration that they're going to now go out with. Both organizations are working together to help companies build a virtual workplace of the future, so they have high quality access to mission critical applications, as I said earlier, by leveraging key technologies like VDI, etc., from Google. So that's a consultative approach plus a technology. Contact centers of the future, that's an interesting nuance. Deloitte will build on the contact center AI capability from Google to really deliver customized solutions for specific enterprise needs, which include improved customer experience, personalization, and ongoing support to customers. Collaboration is another interesting one. Deloitte is helping Indian clients integrate the Google Cloud collaboration capability, which is G Suite, into their organization. And that's a fundamentally cloud native capability. And finally, leveraging the power of the data and AI stack, Deloitte is building customized tools to help organizations drive efficiencies across their planning, budgeting, forecasting, and demand management processes. So it's pulling together all these capabilities, wrapping around with massive consultative capability required to help customers adopt this technology on scale unprecedented. I believe it's an unprecedented opportunity for this partnership to really help customers scale in the future.
Thanks, Karan. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you for your thoughts. I loved hearing from you, and I look forward to working together. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
What profound insights. Thanks, Karan Romal, for this message. Good afternoon, everyone. I am Neeraj Arora, partner and Google Alliance leader for Deloitte India. I'm extremely excited to host this specific segment of today's discussion. We are all in the midst of extraordinary times, not only for our teams, colleagues, and customers, but for the world at large. And the impact has created many new challenges, requiring us to adapt to new ways of working efficiently. It is really transforming our workplaces and workers. As my colleague Vinay earlier mentioned, we are excited to bring leading industry thinkers and doers about some of the considerations in today's unprecedented times, get into a discussion around what changes have been necessitated across our value chains, specific interventions that we have seen work well with regards to digitalizing and modernizing the workspaces. So please join me in welcoming our guests and industry leaders today. And we have with us Samit Datta. Samit is a global chief supply chain and technology officer at Piramal Glass Limited. Samit, welcome. Samit brings more than 2 decades of experience in managing large-scale transformation projects in a variety of sectors such as healthcare, services, manufacturing, etc. As a global supply chain leader for Piramal Glass and tech officer, he is managing the operations across India, US, Sri Lanka, and Europe. Next, we have Nash Narasimhan.
Hi.
Hi, Nash. Nash is the head of digital e-commerce omni-channel business for the India region at HP Inc. Nash has over 2 decades of experience in IT industry. He is a key member of global leadership team for technology services at HP. At HP, Nash has launched and built brands, designed high-volume SMB and channel partner programs, promoting HP's digital transformation. And finally, please also welcome my colleague, Rajiv Singh. Rajiv is a partner and leader of Deloitte's core business operations for India as well as APAC. Rajiv brings more than 2 decades of experience across management consulting and industry. He has worked in the areas of market entry strategy, target operating model, business transformation, and EBITDA improvement programs across various sectors. Rajiv works with CII, ACMA, SIAM, and is also the co-lead for the Industry 4.0 committee for FICCI. Participants, turning to you, you are on mute. However, do feel free to type out your questions in the chat window. At any time during the webinar, we'll get to as many of these questions during the Q&A session right after this panel discussion. So why don't we get going with the discussion, beginning with you, Samit. Samit, the COVID-19 pandemic has really disrupted our workspaces, operations, and supply chain in unprecedented ways. Curious to know as to how your organization is really adopting to work collaboratively and remotely in this new normal.
Thanks, Neeraj. Thanks for this opportunity. I also thank Deloitte and Google for providing me this opportunity. Also, a big welcome to my co-participants, Rajiv and Nash. It's an interesting question you asked, Neeraj, but I would like to take a little philosophical twist to this and start with some words which actually were doing the rounds prior to COVID. And the first word that comes to my mind is disruption. I mean, this has been doing the rounds for several years. Several companies have been saying we need to get disrupted. The internet has come and disrupted things. So a lot of new technologies, a lot of new business models were developed, and many of these have also won awards and recognition. But if you look at the scale of these were either limited to a particular organization or a particular industry sector, maybe a domain, and maybe at best a country. I mean, that's also very few. The second word, which has happened since 2019, and this is something which we supply chain guys love to use, is called VUCA. And this has gained a lot of prominence, but in my mind, VUCA is a synonym of the word excuse, because that's something which we use often, top management uses often when they can't explain certain things, either their inability or their failure to provide the right results. I mean, it could be something like, there's a slowdown in economy, what can I do? The energy prices have shot up, what can I do? Demonetization happened, GST happened, even something like GST was like a good VUCA that happened. And of course, there's a favorite, global warming. But if you look at all these things, these were still very isolated, happening to few, happening to many. But what happened in this pandemic is that we had all these words, disruption, VUCA, working at scale. So there was a real effect of a real pandemic. We also had a real cyclone that happened in the Bay of Bengal, followed by one in the Arabian Sea, the Amphan one I'm talking about. You have floods going on right now in Assam, Bihar, Maharashtra, Gujarat. And we take notice of all these things, and we really try to understand the real philosophical, deep meaning of these words, disruption and VUCA. And that is exactly what we are experiencing now in 2020. And one thing that comes to my mind is a classic model which one of my classmates had just talked to me a few days ago, is that we need to respond. We then need to probably recover and then look at how to thrive in this. So in all this, what has happened is there's a beautiful new word which has been coined, which seems to be the answer to most of our problems. And that word is called digital. And if you look at it, it has got many avatars. There's an element of gaming, there's an element of collaboration, there's an element of virtualization, there's an element of social, there's an element of connected, there's an element of analytics. We hear words like AI, ML, mobility being thrown at us at will by everybody. But I'd like to take a pause out here and look at, how we can learn from our children. And they have been consuming this as mainstream right from probably their birth. And they very intuitively and very innately consume all these digital end products without really realizing what are the depth of these technologies. And that's how technology has made a significant change to the way we look at life. So now let me come to the question that you posed to me, Neeraj, which is about, how did we do in the manufacturing and the supply chain? I'll tell you, I have never been pampered so much in my career as I have been in the last 3 months. That's simply because, the supply chain folks and the IT and the technology folks suddenly got very well noticed by a lot of the organization and especially the top management. And I'm really not complaining about this. I think it's great because often we've called the help desk guy and yelled at him because our laptop was not working or some applications not working. We got yelled because we were not able to supply a particular package to a customer. And despite the fact that we had a 99.999% reliability, that 0.01001% failure that has happened has actually, and that too, it was for the most prominent and the best, the most important customer, actually marred a lot of the good work that the supply chain folks have done. And suddenly, when these disruptions have taken place, even a 5% failure has been lauded and congratulated because we've performed much better than most of our sales folks, who poor chaps have seen probably a 20% reduction in their demand. So it's been a little interesting, and it's been a little rewarding at that as well. So now let's talk about the point that you talked about, a normal. I really don't know what's the normal, because if you look at the pandemic, we started way back in the month of March in anticipation. After seeing countries shutting down, we started providing VPN connectivity and shifting assets to people's homes in the hope that work will continue from home. Then Modi ji came up on 23rd in the night and said that lockdown from day after tomorrow. And suddenly there was another helter-skelter and factories were shut. So initial reaction was that we are running the race and we are in the last lap of the race of the financial year. And here comes this big disruption of shutting down. So what happens to those unmet sales targets? How will we achieve the numbers that we've given? And a lot of people actually felt a lot of emotional drain, because they felt that, I had this 1 week to do this, and here I could not do it. So there was a lot of disruption from that perspective. It was almost like Usain Bolt running the 100 meters, and in the last 5 meters, he pulls a muscle. It was as big as that. So counterintuitively, what happened was people also said, okay, fine. There was another bunch of people who said, okay, fine. You know what? I want to read my best, the book that I wanted to read for years. I want to catch up on all the movies. No more travel. So we are so happy. Many of them did yoga, went into meditation. But look at what it is now. I don't know anybody who is not working 12 hours continuously. So what we thought is that we're going to catch up on a lot of things, a lot of, catch up work on many matters that were important in the bucket list, has suddenly become all out of the window, and we're all moving from one Zoom call or one Google call or one call to the other call. And that's how life has become stressful. And you think about it, this change, what happened in the month of April? In the month of April, we realized that, by shutting down our factories, we had actually caused a lot of losses to the organization, because there are huge fixed costs that need to be fueled. So we said, okay, we'll start. But then we had the stick wielding happy cops who had not been, using their stick for quite some time, as well as the babus who were actually given responsibility to ensure that, they do controls of all human safety and health in their particular districts or in their collectors' jurisdictions. They became holier than the Pope suddenly. And this kind of disrupted again a lot of life. So you had a lot of labor moving out. And, this is one tragedy that India needs to really be, worried about, because that's really something which happened. So you had a lot of people moving out. So you were now ready to start, and you had a lot of other disruptions that took place. These were also very man-made disruptions. So when you looked at it, I remember in the month of April, the whole month was spent in trying to write to the local government authorities, write to the ministries, and get just basic work started. So when we started getting the work and we got our factories up and running, the next problem to solve was, how do you manage the raw material? Because sand is not a raw material, chemicals are not a raw material, which is an essential product, but you're producing something which is glass bottles which go into manufacturing medicines, which is an essential product. So a lot of interaction, working with a lot of remote people, working at mines, working with SMEs, trying to get connectivity up. These were some really interesting challenges, and I have to admit that given all these things, India actually has done quite well with respect to connecting the people out here. So we finally managed to get our factory running. We finally managed to get our raw material running. But once we produced, we did not again have transportation to send it out. We managed to get the transportation up. We realized that we don't have a customer because he was either shut or he simply vanished. So this led to classical supply chain problems of inventory mismatch, excess costs, overburdening of limited resources. And all this actually created a sense of inconsistency where there was really no guarantee or no promise that what I have produced will finally go out. You look at the month of May, the intensity shifted from, now that the plants will run, they will run in limited manner, but the migrant labor had gone. You had really no solution. You were really literally picking people from the roads to get work done. It ran into a huge skilling issue because what we have been producing with our skilled workforce was no more there. But still, we had to get the wheels going. And in order to get the wheels going, you actually had to spend a lot of time and effort in trying to reach out, train, and stuff like that in very short period of time. Look at the month of June. In the month of June, I think many things have normalized, but now you have imbalances because you have a current account surplus. So you have fewer containers being imported in the country, and you have far more exports, so you really don't have equipment. So I think, as the country and the government has changed quote from Jaan hai to jahan hai, then Jaan bhi to jahan bhi, and now it is Atmanirbhar Bharat and becoming vocal for local. The normals itself are changing tremendously. So there is nothing known as a normal anymore. I think it's becoming abnormal. As supply chain folks, we have been solving the same problem innovatively day in and day out. What I did yesterday, there is no guarantee that it's going to work tomorrow. And this is what has been life for us. Exciting on the fast lane, but also extremely draining. So how did we fix these? Of course, we looked at technology. Typically, the way technology was managed or the way technology contributed was that it would solve 80% of the solutions. It says 80% of the problems, and managers would solve 20% of the other problems. But now that Pareto has got inverted, and the ask that we have from technology is that you solve 80% of my problems that I'm having, which normally has now become the 20% manager issue. So it's the same equation with trying to solve the same problems, having the same flexibility. So the technology has to become equally flexible, remote, and it has to be very intuitive, like how our kids use the systems. So if you look at it, how did we respond? And that was the question that you asked, Neeraj, is that we really looked at the tenets, and that's where somewhere the group values of the company that I work for came into play, and which is knowledge, action, care, and impact. What we realized is that your responses of the past that you did for the disruptions in the VUCA world came into play. They were indeed messiahs which came as big helping hands. One of the biggest realization as a supply chain practitioner as well as a technology practitioner has been you have to demonstrate trust, and it is also past work and respect that has led to trust, which has also helped you during the pandemic and even now. So the faith and commitment given to the last person in the organization, and we are looking at extending absolute empowerment and decision making right to the bottom of the workforce. So whatever decisions they make, we hold ourselves accountable and we trust that person to do it. We also have seen that people have to be entrepreneurial, and we are using a lot of technology for doing the connect to see how they are acting, what they are doing. A lot of the priorities, a lot of the policies have actually been reworked, have been reshaped without too much of questions. Last but not the least is something which we are talking about is getting the feedback on a near real minute basis. And that's where a lot of flexible solutions have to be brought into place. And using the spirit of entrepreneurship, trust, and then looking at innovatively solving the problem at the absolute tertiary end. I sitting in the headquarters is giving some instructions has got very little value in such circumstances. And that is something which we see technology has helped us, because we are now getting feeds from multiple places, multiple areas coming in and seeing, and then we are able to piece together, let's say, the demand or the supply. So communication is something which is very important, and we've tried to reach out to all our employees, our extended partners, giving them the assurance that we are going to be one big family, committed together. And that is where, again, a lot of leadership has to be demonstrated. And that's something which we've been able to do pretty well. Not only we, I think even the extended supply chain vendors, they have come out of the way to come and, work for this cause. Because many people are actually very badly hurt. So, I mean, if you really look at it, so if I were to just summarize it, the first part is the physical part, okay? We have used physical networks. We've used our own offices, branch offices. We also reached out to Piramal Foundation because they do a lot of grassroots level work, and they know a lot of government officials in and around the districts that we get our raw materials from, to get them restarted and influence the collectors to say that this is something which is required for medicines, etc. We've used a lot of technology. We've used extensive use of the cloud platforms, used a lot of track and trace, stuff which I've been trying to push for months together, that, you guys use this, guys use this, guys use this. I think the pandemic has come and really helped me in getting a lot of these things done, because people started using this like small kids because they were intuitive. Even the diehards realized that, they need to use the platforms, and they also looked at, speeding up the APIs and stuff like that with our vendors and even with some government sites. We've done lots of work on the P2P, that's the procure to pay. We've gone e-invoicing, we've gone into track and trace, we've gone into advance shipment. So almost with the span of the last 3-4 months, we've kickstarted a lot of activities which required a lot of push in the past, and many of these activities have actually yielded results, and people are seeing the benefits of this. And most of these are actually a lot of technology play games. Last but not the least, we have, how do you respond? Like, say in June, we had a temporary stoppage and we were asked to reduce our workforce overnight. How do you respond to 6,000 people? You actually have some kind of communication. So your WhatsApp doesn't work, your Telegrams doesn't work. So you actually invested in a tool which actually helped you to create a natural broadcast to everybody. And mind you, we use this to do an online broadcast of the national flag hoisting on 15th of August, where we ensured social distancing. People saw it from their houses, and the plant heads actually hoisted the flag. So that's how intuitively and interestingly, technology can be used. So last but not the least, I think it's all about, again, respond, recover, and thrive. And even when you think you're in thrive in this normal or this whatever changing normal, you experience that even in the thrive phase, you have to again respond, recover, and thrive. And this can actually be made easy with new technologies, with new computing, with virtualization, with edge computing, all these things to make to ensure that there is a standard policy which is deployed, and yet allow people to do their creative dashboarding, do real time feedbacking on the fly. And that's what the beauty of what technology can bring in. So in a nutshell, Neeraj, we've actually tried to use a lot of technology to try and solve problems. I'm not sure whether we've really covered the distance. I think we're very far away from it. But yes, we made a humble beginning, and it's beginning to help us in the way that we are able to respond to it right now.
Got it. Thanks so much, Samit. How eloquently you actually ran us through the experiences that you had last few months, and then in terms of the challenges you pointed out, the tenets as well as the solutions that you are considering. Thanks so much for bringing up all that perspective. Let me just actually turn to you, Nash. As the e-commerce and the omni-channel leader for HP, I was wondering what strategy did we adopt to ensure that HP delivers that exceptional customer service while also increasing the operational efficiency in these specific times?
Sure. Thanks, Neeraj. I hope you are able to hear me.
Yes, go ahead.
Thanks for the opportunity. And so I'll just sort of frame my answer in 2-3 parts. First is, this is the new normal. And the first and the most important thing for us is the health and safety of our employees and customers. So we run a fairly big operation in India, and we have factories, we have supply chain, we have last mile delivery and partners. We have stores in about 600 cities. So sorry, 300 cities, 600 stores. So it's first is health and safety is the most important thing. Second one I would say is post-COVID. I don't think there is anybody here who has not used a PC, because our entire work has gone to home. Okay, any white collar job has now gone into home. Whether you are a student or a teacher or a work from home professional, you just realize the smartphone is not enough. You need a PC, and you need to continue to work your 10 hours or 12 hours a day. You need a PC. So PC has actually become a necessity, even though sometimes the government doesn't recognize it from an e-commerce standpoint. But PC has really become a necessity for any white collar job. So what has happened in the new normal for us? Okay, the first thing is many of our customers are unable to go out in a lockdown to buy a PC. Okay, and this is where the work I do in my organization gains a lot of significance. I think Samit said that right for that 80-20 rule. I like the way he said, in other times, we are like 20%, but now suddenly we are at 80%, right? So things like online store and omni-channel business become very important in a lockdown. So, for example, I ran the online store. Before I even go to that, we did certain things from an end customer standpoint, which to support them. First is for SMBs, we gave a 1-month free help desk for any brand of PC or printer, so that they feel comfortable that you can talk to at least one vendor to get their fixes on the PC. The second thing is in the online store, we collect money on the web. We deliver the goods across almost more than 1,200 cities across India. We deliver, but the back end of it has become completely digital. The support, and it has become virtual, right? The web support, the chat support, the chat bots, the WhatsApp support, the voice call, every one of this, and the rise of digital payments, everything has become really, really big time. Okay, in that. But what we had to actually do was we have to ensure in the pin code where the customer wants the delivery, we are able to deliver. So we used to jokingly call this as factory to family. We have to take the PC from the factory and deliver to the family. And so you need to know 29 state government rules. some are in Tamil, some are in Bengali, some are in Hindi, and you need to read them. As he said, the last police constable and the collector there, you need to know how he allows the e-commerce thing to happen there to deliver. So that was a big challenge, but I think we kept a dashboard. The whole thing was monitored on a dashboard from factory to family, and we could just spot out everything from logistics to warehouse to last mile delivery to logistics service provider to social distancing rule in each warehouse, etc. So that was really a sort of a a work we did, which is completely digital in nature, I would say. The second part is omni-channel, or the stores. How do we make the 600 stores in 300 cities sell? We moved to we are partnering with big companies including Deloitte. We also work with Google, and we do work. We completely digitally handhold the customer from the search, which is like HP store near me, to online ratings and reviews of each of the stores, to features like click to call. I think somebody was talking, I think Kiran Bajwa was talking about the AI of the call center. So we use some of that. Click to call, and getting the leads on the lead management system, to requesting video demos because they can't come to the shop. They can do video demos, to showing real-time inventory of stocks in the channel to our customers, and also billing and delivering the product to the home without them coming to the shop. So if you see this, there's a lot of backend technology on this to make this happen. But we are happy that we were able to build the digital infrastructure both in the physical channel of retail and also in the online channel to take care of the new demand. And I would say we are in a quiet period, so I can't talk about results, but I can say we have been reasonably successful as a company on this. So that's it on this part. Yeah.
Got it. Thanks so much, Nash. Factory to family, interesting way to portray that. Thanks for bringing that perspective. Participants on the call, I am across the questions that you have posed. Please do keep writing those questions. We'll take these up as we go along through the rest of the session as well. Rajiv, as I come to you, let me just try to bundle in another question as well. So as a leader for the core business operations who works pretty much across sectors, what in your opinion are the toughest challenges and opportunities for clients in the new normal? So maybe just 3 or 4 key perspectives that you have seen.
Yeah, good. Thanks, Neeraj. It was really a pleasure to hear both Samit as well as Nash speak. As Samit was speaking, what was crossing my mind is a WhatsApp message which was floated, I think, about a couple of months back, which said that who is the biggest digital transformation catalyst. And it said that the chief digital officer, CEO, and it said COVID-19. And we know what was the right answer out there. So Samit, I think no answers for guessing that right, but no gifts for getting that right. But see, I think COVID has been really a big transformation in that sense. And one more quotation that came to my mind as I heard Nash and Samit was, someone said that there are decades when nothing happens. And then there are weeks when decades happen. Okay, and this is what we have experienced actually in the last 16 to 18 weeks or 20 weeks of lockdown that we have seen now. So actually what we have seen over the last few weeks, companies and businesses go through is some real big transformation. And coming back, Neeraj, when you said what are the biggest challenges, I think challenges, no doubt we need to look at, but what was also important was what kind of opportunities the businesses saw while these challenges came. So coming to the challenges, I think the biggest challenge the organizations first realized when COVID or pandemic hit them was in terms of business continuity. And while they thought of business continuity, even before that, they thought about their own people. And very rightly so. I mean, what Samit and Nash said was very, very appropriate, that all the businesses across the entire country really thought about people first, infrastructure, facilities, and so on and so forth, and took all the right steps in terms of getting things fixed at the first point in time from a safety perspective. And immediately what they started thinking about was business continuity. They said that, okay, just like Jaan hai to Jahan hai is what I heard Samit say, which was the first motto. And after that, Jaan bhi and Jahan bhi, something similar. So then came the business continuity, and people said, okay, how do I ensure that I take care of my people, I take care of my infrastructure, but I also ensure that there is a continuity to the business in some sense. The next challenge that we heard even Samit speak about, for example, was market demand. So fine, I ensure that there is a continuity of business in some form and shape, but then came, how do I generate demand in the market, and how do I fulfill that demand? Even if there is a demand, how do I ensure that my parts or my products or my service reaches that particular customer or that segment of customers who have a demand? So it came and boiled down to all to do with the market demand fulfillment. The third challenge that the organizations were trying to address was more around supply chain resilience in some form and shape. The reason is because the way the parts were moving all across the country and the way the products are sourced, it's not like you source everything which is just in and around your facility. You get sometimes like both the organizations that we see, whether it is Nash or whether it is Summit, that the two organizations they come from, the supply chain that they have is pretty global in nature. Quite a few of things may also, while they may source a lot of things locally, but they also may have some global footprint out there. So how do you ensure that there is a continuity from a supply chain perspective? And lastly, one of the biggest challenges that most of the organizations faced was from a labor perspective, availability of people, because we saw a lot of labor, especially the migrants going back to their hometowns, the rural areas, and so on and so forth. How do you ensure that when you start your factories once again, start your offices once again, how do you ensure that you have people coming back to your offices was a big challenge that most of the organizations faced. So Neeraj, those were the kind of challenges that we found businesses face. But what was more important, I just wanted to highlight, is also some of the opportunities that businesses found out of this. And I thought that some of the organizations really thought of redoing their entire business model. I was really amazed to see a lot of businesses not trying to simply digitize what they were doing in the past, but they said that, can I do something completely different? And for example, I can't name here examples in terms of clients because some of that may be confidential piece of work and so on. But some of the clients came back and said that, why should I have a brick and mortar dealer going forward? Why don't I build dealerships on cloud completely? Now it's a complete change in the way they were operating, and they say that, can I build everything on cloud? We saw a lot of digitization happening at the front end, which is at the customer, because people said, can I ensure that I digitize some of those processes? But once again, they said that when I digitize these processes, how do I build infrastructure on my IT side? And we found a lot of people going back and saying that, okay, can I leverage cloud here? Because I can probably build this faster on a cloud platform. So like Samit said, that they have been leveraging cloud in a big manner. I think it's not a surprise to me, because I thought that is what we have seen a lot of people do, for example, while they are trying to digitize. We found a lot of changes in the concept of what we call as work, the worker, and the workplace, which is something to do with virtualization, because the entire concept of work changed, because the way work was done earlier and the way work was managed during the COVID times, I think it's completely different, or it brought about a paradigm shift. I had a lot of people who came back and said, we never thought that we can also execute the sales with our sales executives never ever visiting the retailer or the dealer. And they did manage. So the businesses did manage to accomplish that. So the entire concept of work has changed. The entire concept of workplace, we have seen tons and tons of articles where people have come back and said that we don't believe that we are going to build any new offices coming in the next few years. So the entire concept of workplace is changing. We had so many manufacturing organizations who are running now close to 60%, 80% of their capacity from the pre-COVID times, but with only 30% of the workforce walking inside the plant. Not necessarily that they have cut down on production operators, but they have definitely cut down on a lot of support like logistics, like HR, like finance, like procurement, walking into the plant, but everyone working out of their homes virtually. So I think that there is a lot of change that we are seeing and a lot of opportunities that people have come out with. These are some of the things that are likely to remain as permanent, is what we tend to believe, even post the pandemic. So even if the pandemic is over, I think it's like a elastic. It has got stretched to such an extent, and so many new things have happened that even after the pandemic goes, we don't believe that it will come to the original point. There is some change which is going to be permanent there, and that is what is going to stick around with some of the businesses. But very importantly is, like I heard Samit speak about this a couple of times, is that the initial focus was all on responding, and now the focus is all on recover. But going ahead, the entire focus is going to be how do I thrive. I think the organizations which really try and change their business models and transform the way they are doing work, I think that is where probably some of the newer age players we may find as thriving better. So with that, let me get back to you, Neeraj. Over to you.
Thanks so much, Rajiv. Again, how articulate description of the challenges and the opportunities for us going ahead. Participants, we are just running on time, so I just wanted to make sure that any questions that you had, we take those up. We will be running the live Q&A as we go along through the rest of the session as well. We have about 15 more minutes to go. Just to conclude this panel discussion, here are some of the key things that I've noticed. We talked quite a bit about the challenges that are faced by the manufacturing sector overall, from the consumer electronics perspective as well, particularly around managing the productivity at workplace, ensuring worker safety across the value chain from sourcing, material handling, manufacturing operations point of view. We heard some interesting perspectives from the logistics distribution perspective, sales as well as customer service. Also talked a bit about the HR admin related issues, other IT, finance, and perhaps to some extent R&D related issues. We talked about that. We also talked about the need for specific solutions from the point of view of operations, quality, maintenance. So for example, connected shop floor, collaborative robots being used, call center AI kind of applications, drone-based solutions for stock inspection and verification, supply chain control towers, a lot of sales and operations planning related interventions. So quite a bit of solutions that we have seen our industry leaders experience, and they talk eloquently about that. What is required, therefore, is for organizations to take into consideration specific design principles. Think about those before initiating this virtualization journey. I just wanted to point out that Deloitte and Google have got the opportunity. Deloitte as Google Cloud's back-to-back service provider for the last 3 years. We've got the opportunity to service clients pretty much across the world on these specific topics, and we look forward to the opportunity of working with you as well going ahead. How can we really start together? Email us. We'll have the email ID flashed separately so that we can connect with you, look at the prospects of having a joint Deloitte-Google assessment, as well as think of the possibility of conducting a proof of concept for selected clients with Google. Let me, with this, again thank our panelists for their valuable time. Thank you so much for your perspectives here today.
Thanks, Neeraj.
Thanks, Neeraj. Thank you.
Thank you, Neeraj.
Perfect. So delegates, now let's go a level deeper. Summarize our learnings on the challenges that we have seen, the solutions. I'm going to invite Rajesh Shivani from Customer Engineering at Google to share some of his thoughts on some of these challenges and the solutions. Perhaps see if we can do a quick demonstration of some of these. Rajesh, on to you.
Sure. Thank you so much, Neeraj. Some great conversation around the real challenges being faced by people who actually face them, right? So I'll talk about some of the work that Google's been doing in this space by leveraging all our strengths, not just in cloud, but as part of a broader Google. We've probably just got 10 odd minutes, so I'll keep it short and to the point, and we could always look at doing a much more detailed discussion if that is relevant to anybody who's listening in. So let me quickly share a few things that I had in mind. Yeah, so I put my screen up. Hopefully it's visible to everyone here. So essentially the whole idea was to look at modernizing not just the workplace, meaning the office environment, but overall workspaces, right? Which means on the shop floor, how do remote workers interact with, it was so well put by Nash about all, PC becoming a commodity, which is absolutely true, but it's also about how do those PCs then access to the core applications, be it an SAP or be it any other transactional system or an analytical system in a safe and secure manner, irrespective of where people are. right down to the shop floor. There's a lot of work happening around modernizing shop floors, right? And we heard from Samrit as well, and Rajiv, and he spoke about, both of them spoke about, how things are happening there. The way we are looking at it from Google is also on similar lines, right? To think about changes that are going to happen not just because of COVID, but in general, right? In general, about things that will move forward. If you think about the workforce, right? So COVID has limited workforce capacity. Thankfully, things are getting back to fair degree of normalcy, at least in the factories and the manufacturing part, not so much in the core offices. But that's okay. That doesn't stop us from working in a productive manner. So workforce limitation is something that we have to deal with as a constraint, and how can we look at dealing with that? And for those who are coming back to the office or coming back to the shop floor, how are they doing this in a safe manner, right? You still want to make sure that the safety guidelines, be it people wearing a mask or staying apart, or while they're interacting with the different machinery, that could also be a source of some germs, if at all, right? So how do you take care of that? The whole demand cycle, the both demand and the supply cycle, the whole volatility that's come about because of the disruption. And again, that was touched upon by a couple of the panelists. So what's happening there? There's a lot of work happening in that space as well. And lastly, all of this taking into account the cost pressures, right? While we want to do a lot of good digital-based technology initiatives, how does that impact the outflow, right, from a cost point of view? So all of these constraints, keeping in mind, both Deloitte and Google Cloud, we're working towards putting together a perspective about how each of those could be handled in an effective manner. Now, I wish I had more time, maybe, like I said, in a subsequent discussion, where we could go into a lot of detailing around each of these areas, right? So, for example, we talk about the whole worker safety and working productive in a remote manner, but still not compromising on productivity and security. So that's key. How do you ensure that, from a shop floor, the whole machine interaction, the physical distancing, or from doing the whole tasks which are repetitive in nature, how do you ensure that it can be done in a seamless manner? So I'll touch upon that in a while. The customer experience, I think Nash touched upon that very, very briefly, where he spoke about the ability to automate some of the interactions, right, through contact centers, through enhanced experience from a caller point of view, to also looking at it from an overall digital branch and dealer perspective. So that's another key area that I'll touch upon. A third is around the whole forecasting and logistics. So looking at all the patterns when it comes to moving from a distributor to a dealer to an end family, as it was put earlier, right? What are the parameters that exist there? And lastly was the whole financial position perspective, right? So very quickly, not going into a lot of detail, when we talk about workers collaborating in a safe mode, doing things like stand-ups or doing things like interactions with the different teams, project catch-ups, all of that has now moved to the whole voice video like we're doing here, and also document authoring and sharing. How do you do that seamlessly? So we're working towards ensuring that workers are able to collaborate in a seamless manner. For those who are transitioning to a new area of an organization, or even some workforce that is now has to go through some retraining, how do you do that in a virtual mode, right? So the whole virtual whiteboards, virtual material that can be used in a seamless manner through video as an interface. So there's work being done by Google on that space. And then, of course, the devices, right? Nash spoke about the whole devices, but there are organizations who, when workers went back, they have to end up using their own devices, right? So the whole bring your own device has become quite prevalent as well. How do you ensure that security is not compromised when BYOD type of initiatives are also being allowed in a situation like this? So there's a lot of work happening there. If you look at the first one, I spoke about giving workers access to the apps they need in a seamless manner through a virtual desktop, or through productivity apps, or through a larger app ecosystem that Google is building out. So all of this done in a completely what we refer to as a zero trust security model. So Google, in fact, built this and we use this internally for a long time now, something called Beyond Corp, right? Which is essentially saying, how do you access apps in a secure manner beyond corporate office, right? And without a VPC to an extent. So think about accessing all the core applications without having the hassle to go through a VPC and still having it securely as a Chrome plugin, right? So that's what Beyond Corp is enabling. Right access through the right device, and with all the network layer security protocols in place. So that's some investment we've done and actually rolled it out, what we have been doing internally for a very long time, right? When it comes to the shop floor, things like visual inspection, right? So are people wearing a mask? Are they staying apart, as I said? So there is a whole visual inspection around worker safety. We are trying to build the whole voice interactions to machines and building. So think about Google Assistant, right? That some of you or many of you might have used, voice commands to either start, stop, or control a machinery, or even doors that go into a building without touching it, right? Because of the fear of touching and possibly contracting something. So voice interactions for machine and building. There's a framework that's being built out using cloud speech, Hindi, English, and a lot of regional languages, right? For production processes around quality, using again image, video data to determine if there is a certain quality that is being compromised. Remote monitoring of machines. So lots happening in this space of working in a productive manner without compromising on safety, security, and obviously productivity being key. So we can go into a lot more detailing around how that works. On the customer side, again, this was touched upon briefly. How do you enable things like virtual agent, right? Now, Google's been doing a lot of this work, and I'll again show you in a minute around how do we answer a lot of these queries without necessarily bringing in, somebody in the middle to answer that call. How do you look at assisting a live agent with the right set of tools and even recommendations to talk about, and then even understand why are people calling, right? So what we did was we created a framework called Contact Center AI that uses conversation as an interface that moves away from a traditional robotic pre-recorded voices to a more human sounding voice that can converse with the party on the other side as if they were talking to a human. So this is a technology that came from a project called WaveNet that Google's been using internally for a while, and now we've kind of packaged it as an offering in WaveNet that is part of the whole Contact Center AI. We move from a true, a typical chatbot, which is rule-based, through a much more intelligence built into it. All the technology that is running at the back for auto-tuning them on a timely basis, even doing knowledge-based integration, which means not just responding to a query, but even fulfilling a query, right? So if you're a bank and you want to do a statement request, fulfilling the statement request as an end-to-end seamless process, right? And of course, the recommendations I spoke about. So I wanted to quickly, in the interest of time, just show you a 1-minute view of how some of these things can actually come together. Sorry, if I could just play this video. Yeah, so it's playing here in terms of how some of these things could possibly look like from a contact center experience point of view. So that'll give you a good perspective here. Yeah, it's just coming up. Yeah.
Hi, Prisha. Thanks for calling our bank. How can I help?
Hi, I'd like to pay my bill.
Great. Can you please verify your address?
15 State Street. Oh, and how much is it?
Virtual Agent provides immediate conversational support with.
Sorry, let me just play this again. There was some audio issues. Yeah.
Hi, Prisha. Thanks for calling our bank. How can I help?
Hi, I'd like to pay my bill.
Great. Can you please verify your address?
15 State Street. Oh, and how much is it?
Virtual Agent provides immediate conversational support with customers directing the flow.
You owe $150. Do you want to pay with the account ending in 1337?
Yes, please.
Oops,
Done.
I'm sorry.
Email confirmation.
I'm really sorry. It's just going into mute for some reason. I've just put it back up when I was playing the video. So I'm just going to play it one last time. Sorry again. Hopefully it's not mute now.
Hi, Prisha. Thanks for calling our bank. How can I help?
Hi, I'd like to pay my bill.
Great. Can you please verify your address?
15 State Street.
I have unmuted myself.
How much is it?
Virtual Agent provides immediate conversational support with customers.
I'm sorry, you're not able to hear me? Are you able to hear me?
We can hear you. Let's just continue, I think.
Yeah. That's the reason why I put it into mute, because when you play the video, it plays it twice, right? So let's just continue, please.
Directing the flow.
You owe $150. Do you want to pay with the account ending in 1337?
Yes, please.
Done. I've sent an email confirmation. Is there anything else?
Virtual Agent can take care of basic fulfillment on the spot.
Yes, actually, there's a $35 charge I don't recognize.
From last week? It looks like it's an overdraft fee.
Oh, that's not fair. I didn't know.
Okay, let me transfer you to a specialist to help.
More complex cases are seamlessly handed off to a human agent.
Hi, Prisha. I'm Elliot. I see you're concerned about the overdraft fee.
Yeah, I didn't know I would get charged.
Okay, I can waive the fee this time, but would you like overdraft protection so it doesn't happen again?
Agent Assist listens in, giving real-time, step-by-step guidance.
Yes, please.
Okay, I've set it up. Is there anything else?
No, this was great. Thanks a lot.
Lastly, Insights gives you real-time visibility into key call drivers and sentiment.
Right, so I'll just move on. So that gave you a picture, right? The person called, all the queries were handled by the agent itself. It was also detecting sentiment when it said, oh, it's not fair. It looked at closing the loop as much as possible, handing it over to a live agent with all the relevant context, and then fulfilling the request and even suggesting something new. So all of this is being done using conversational AI, and this has become much more relevant when you have a lot more queries coming in a remote context, right? There's more happening here. I'll not go into it in the interest of time. How do we then look at doing a completely digital experience? You know, there was again a talk about how do you do a virtual reality based trials, for example, whether it's a auto dealership or whether it's a laptop for that matter, right? So there's a lot of happening on the whole digital branch capability. And finally, on the overall logistics perspective, right? How do you do this last mile transportation and optimization around that this uses a lot of work that Google Maps has been doing, for example, to understand traffic behavior and the patterns around that and optimizing things there. So lots happening. I'll stop here. Things around worker safety, productivity, overall consumer and customer experience, the logistics optimization, and then of course the overall IT cost and financial things that can be looked at. I'll hand it over back to Vinay to just conclude on this.
So thank you so much. And I guess we had it's top of the hour. We just overran by about a couple of minutes, but I guess the topic was interesting. We did hear some good insights: plant operations, supply chain disruption. The common theme in all of this is the new normal forces you to think differently, to act differently, and possibly you would never have thought about it earlier. The situation has forced us to kind of relook at how we do our business. And I love the terminology that Nash used, factory to family delivery model. I guess that pretty much sums up our modernization of the workplace. Thank you all for listening in. Thank you all for staying back and overran by a couple of minutes. Sorry about that. But here we have an email ID here. If you have any questions or inquiries, please do feel free to reach out to us. Google, and again on behalf of Google and Deloitte, I thank you all for your time, and I also thank the panelists for taking the time to spend with us. Thank you very much, and look forward to hearing from you soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.